So if you're watching this video, I just want to remind you that the progress you can't see still matters, and not only that, it's probably the most important thing to invest in. Let me kind of explain. So I probably don't need to tell you that the benefits of compound interest or the benefits of thinking long term, you probably already know this, but this is kind of a reminder for myself and my younger self and probably you watching this, because you're in a dip where a lot of the work that you're putting in isn't getting recognized. Maybe you're not seeing the external results, and not gonna lie, sometimes it's just really discouraging to throw everything into something and not see the rewards. For me, I've personally gone through this through my jujitsu journey, my pharmacy journey when I was a pharmacist, and even my entrepreneurial journey, and even my dating life to today. And so this applies to all areas of growth. And this is the hard truth of personal development. It's not sexy a lot of times, and a lot of times it's just this day in, day out kind of monotony that gets, I don't want to say boring, it's really, really fulfilling. I love my jujitsu workouts and stuff like that, but it's easy to get discouraged and a lot of people quit. So I'll give you an example that's near and dear to my heart, jujitsu. Even if you're not into combat sports, you can take lessons from this. So there's one point in my jujitsu career where I almost quit. Basically, when you're new to jujitsu, if you don't know what jujitsu is, it's one of the hottest sports right now. It's submission grappling where you choke each other out, break each other's. It's really, really fun. But you can imagine day after day in, day out, going after scraps, getting beat up every single day. It's not the most fun thing, and it attracts a really sadistic type of person like myself, I guess, right? And so many others. It reminds me a lot about pharmacy school, where you look to your left and you look to your right, and chances are they won't be there in 6 months or even a few years down the line. And so one of my friends, he actually just started jujitsu, and I think within 6 months he quit. He got injured, and then he never went back again and took up running, which is really funny. So that's the point that most people quit. But for me, I remember being a blue belt for good 4 to 5 years. And in the jiu-jitsu community, there's something called the blue belt blues, where it's just really kind of depressing because you're training a lot. Yes, you're better than the white belts, but you just don't feel like you're making any progress and everything feels stagnant. I remember during this time of my jiu-jitsu career or my jiu-jitsu journey, I didn't feel like I was getting better, and I actually felt like I was getting a lot worse actually, which was kind of crazy. And it's quite depressing. Sometimes the peers around you, I would have moments where I would be really, really good, and then these people would catch me and then start beating me up. It's just this constant back and forth where you kind of don't see the progress and where everything is very stagnant. You also come to a point at your blue belt where the Dunning-Kruger effect kind of wears off, meaning most beginners, you show a white belt 1 or 2 techniques, they think they're expert at it. They think that they know all the details. But really, you come to the point where you realize, oh, there's a lot that you don't know. There's a lot of nuance to just choking people, not the actual choke, but how do you enter into a choke? How do you finish it? What are the small details? When do you try to go for it? How do you chain it up with the other submissions? And these are things that most beginners don't know. And I was just really stuck in it. And then all of a sudden, probably even when I got my purple belt, I didn't really see that much progress. But then all of a sudden, maybe 2 months, 3 months, 4 months into my purple belt, I just started getting way better all of a sudden. And actually, I was studying a lot less, instructionals less. I was doing actually a lot less than I normally do. And so what happened? Honestly, during this kind of valley of despair that most people talk about, I was actually learning how to learn. And learning has this compound effect where it builds on top of itself, where I noticed myself in the past, I wouldn't know how, I would see a move and it would take me a while to understand how to move on the mat and get the right body mechanics. But as a purple belt, I could just see a move and actually hit it live on a white belt, which was crazy. I didn't even need to drill it or anything like that. I could just see something and visualize it, and my body would just know what to do, which was pretty crazy. And I think that's the thing that we need to realize sometimes, that in between these incubation periods, it's our body, we're learning how to learn. And there's all these nuances, our brain is making these connections and stuff like that, this concept of neuroplasticity. And we have to realize that we are learning at a really rapid rate. And even though we can't see the growth, even though I'm not hitting this emissions, there's a lot of stuff going under the hood that we can't see. Another good example of this is kind of like with investing. When I was investing, one of the core principles that they tell you is not to take your money out because you want compound growth to kick in. And so oftentimes you don't see the results like 20, 30, or even 40 years until retirement, right? If you're investing into S&P 500. I think this is an important concept, by the way, because if you look day to day, you're not going to see much growth. And actually, you're going to see like this like downward spike sometimes, right? But if you expand it onto a long-term horizon, you see it actually go up over time. And a lot of things are like this. It's not only jujitsu. It's not only investing, even like with business too. I'll talk about my business stuff at the end because it's actually most vulnerable to me. But the only expression I can think of that kind of also makes sense is kind of like a good pho broth, right? Sure, can you go to a supermarket, can you go to your H Market and just get an instant pho broth or instant ramen and just make it? For sure you can. But for some reason, it never hits the same. The taste is off. There's a little nuance off. But then you go to your best friend Kevin Wynn's house or Jenny Wynn or something, that your girlfriend or something like that, the AVG, and you go to her mom's house and they cook the best pho broth. It's been stewing for hours and hours and hours. It's made with love. There's nuances, and then they cut up the green onions and stuff like that, and it's like hella good when it comes out. There's all these small details that just stack up to make a really great meal and stuff too. Especially if you make it yourself, there's this rewarding feeling that like, oh, this was so worth it. It's the same with investing. When you invest when you're really, really early and you see it at retirement, you're going to be really happy that you did. When you do jiu-jitsu and coming out, like, I think I'm not a black belt by far. I have a long journey still. But when I do become a black belt, I'm going to look back and really enjoy it. Same with my pharmacy degree too. Even though I don't use pharmacy today, I'm really glad that I put myself through these challenges and stuff looking back. And so I think an important thing to realize is that it's so easy to get caught up with the emotions and feeling down on ourselves or dealing with the criticism of others in the short term. But in the long term, it's most of the time really, really worth it. And so that leads me to my last thing about business, man. This has been the hardest thing for me because with business sometimes it's like a competitive sport. And a lot of times you'll see your revenue go up and down and you're doing the same thing day after day. So for example, when I was like closing for Ali Abdaal, like I was having my last month, I had like 36K months and all that, which isn't crazy for a closer. Like I heard of people making 100K, 50K and stuff like that. It's not insane, but I was doing pretty decent numbers. And then I went on to this other offer, brand new, like wasn't kind of ready, and I made $0 on the offer. And it's like kind of like the blue belt blues where I realized that, you know, my skill hasn't changed, but I'm just going through the ups and downs and the variability of like entrepreneurship. That's why it's really important not to base too much on the external metrics of revenue or how much you make or comparing yourself to others, because it's not the same. There's a bit of, I don't want to say luck, but bit of positioning that goes into business. Fast forward almost 8 months later, I actually secured a really, really great contract with one of my great friends. It's better than my Ali Abdaal deal. I have a whole YouTube team that we're really trying to make this YouTube channel work. There's a lot of stuff that is really exciting. I even have a girl that I'm like dating and stuff too, which is crazy after 5 years of doing all this inner work, deep work and stuff like that as well. So I just want to remind you, if you're in the dip, if you're unhappy with certain areas of life, so much can just change over the course of a month. And like literally for me, I just want to say my life has significantly changed and will continue to significantly change. And sure, am I shooting this video for you? Yes, but I'm also shooting this video for myself to remind myself that, you know, when times were really, really hard, to not give up, because things can just turn around so quickly. And the deeper I get into this type of work, the more I realize that there is a weird force out there. Some people call it God, some people call it universe. I'm trying to still figure it out. But every single time I just pray and write into my notebook, which is like kind of corny because I'm like, dear diary, right? But I just always ask myself, like I ask for help from the universe and stuff like that too. And it's crazy. Like, you can be down to your last dollar and the biggest opportunities will just land on your lap. And it feels like divine intervention. I really want to just leave you off with this. Like, a reminder that not all progress is visible, but the invisible progress is the kind of growth that compounds the hardest, lasts the longest, and breaks you through the loudest. That was from ChatGPT, but I liked everything but that last part, but you get the point. So don't give up. Like, comment below if you're going through a really tough time. I would love to hear your stories. And by the way, here's another video that YouTube algo will think you'll like. I'll see you guys later. Take care. Peace, mother people. Bye.